This is mostly strength. This is mostly skill. This is a lot of strength with a dash of skill, and this is a lot of strength with a lot of skill. Understanding where an exercise sits on the strength-skill continuum is vital for effective progress because how you train for one is not necessarily how you want to train for the other. First, I'll explain why, then I'll show you what to do about it. When there's not much skill required, improvement's going to mainly come from growing muscle in the places that need it and training for higher levels of activation in those muscles. You do this best when you train heavy and take your sets within a few reps of failure. You don't really need to get better at technique to get better at bicep curls, just get bigger biceps, get better at turning those biceps on, and you'll have better curls. But as soon as the movement gets more complex, the ideal training strategy changes fast. And the actual level of complexity where this starts to matter is actually a lot lower than people think. Adding multiple muscle groups and multiple joint actions instantly makes your brain split its attention further. Add in a bit of instability and suddenly dozens of other muscles now have to get involved to control the movement effectively. At this point, even if your muscles are huge and can produce a ton of force, your brain can't actually tap into that power if it doesn't have the ability to control it. That control comes from coordination between all those different muscles working together efficiently, and you don't get better at coordination from just pushing your sets hard. Like a baby learning to walk, your brain learns movement patterns by trying them out, seeing what happens, and then using that feedback to practice again at getting more efficient. The more feedback it gets, the more it can refine that coordination and control the movement better. The better the control, the more you're able to start letting those main muscles loose and using more of their power without losing the rep. That feedback has to be of high quality though, otherwise it's not accurate information that your brain can actually use to turn into a better movement pattern. This means that trying to improve coordination isn't going to work when you're too tired or pushing too close to failure, and it's impossible to get clean technical execution that your brain can actually learn from. This is never going to be a concern if your sport of choice is darts, but for us doing strength training, this makes carefully managing our fatigue and training loads so incredibly important. Understanding this helps you shift your training style to better match the specific movement that you're working on. When I train weighted pull-ups, there's a moderate amount of technique involved, but I know that the biggest driver here is going to be the raw power in my back and my arms. I'll try to get a decent number of total sets and reps in so that I keep refining that skill, but I'm going to be pushing these sets within a couple of reps of failure most of the time and probably not worrying a whole lot about form breakdown unless there seems to be a problem. That is absolutely not how I train muscle-ups. Getting explosive activation of all those different muscles that need to come together for that hard, fast pull where you're trying to throw yourself around the bar as fast as humanly possible requires a lot more practice for all those little timing and technique refinements that build that necessary coordination. And because it needs to be so explosive, even a small amount of fatigue quickly starts to affect your rep quality. I can do over 15 clean muscle ups, but my training for these almost always looks like just 2 or 3 rep sets performed as fast and explosively as possible with nice long rests in between. And I'll do this up to 3 times a week, always at the start of a workout, so I get a good total number of reps and volume of practice, but it's only ever the best execution and movement patterns that get developed. The good news is, for any movements that require a mix of skill and strength, which is most of them, any improvement in either one will make you better, and the more of one that you have, the less of the other you probably need. Even handstand push-ups that lean pretty heavily towards that skill side of the spectrum can be brute force to a certain degree if you have enough strength that you can make big corrections to over and under balancing in the middle of that rep. What this means is that if you always make sure to split up some of your training into addressing both the skill and strength components separately, you're guaranteed to get way better long-term progress than just going all in on one alone. I know that my muscle-ups didn't get to looking the way that they do just through training muscle-ups alone. All those weighted pull-ups and chin-ups have built the raw power so that it's there when my muscle-up technique has gotten good enough to let me tap into it. While I was working towards 90-degree push-ups, my banded reps were the biggest staple, but I got there so much faster by isolating and building the strength for the bottom and top of the press with stable pseudo-planche push-ups and heavy pike push-ups that I could push close to failure without balance being a limiting factor, meaning I built more of that muscle and capacity for high activation so much more efficiently. So if you want the formula, here it is. When the movement requires more skill, you want more total practice, and you want that practice to be extremely high quality. So do lots of sets with low reps, stay far away from failure, and keep that form squeaky clean. When the exercise lands more on the strength side of the continuum, you want to dedicate more time to training those target muscles with stable variations that you can reliably push close to muscular failure and stimulate good growth and activation with just a few sets. And if you want more guidance on how to put this all together, check out this video.